Throughout the years, the evolution and transition of art and its elements has rapidly changed, from the Renaissance to the Rococo to the Neoclassical to the Romantic, leading up to the realistic and impressionistic art. The so-called leader of the Impressionist movement is known as Édouard Manet. The history of Mr. Manet has been extremely fascinating in the extraction of life. Despite his parents disagreeing with his interests, Manet studied at an art school along with under multiple well-known artists of his time. As he grew, he made some of the most famous well-known paintings today, such as Concert in the Tuileries Gardens, Olympia, Luncheon on the Grass, The Spanish Singer, The Café Concert, and many more. Édouard Manet is known for playing a key role in the leadership of the turning century in artwork in France from Realism to Impressionism. Édouard Manet was born on January 23, 1832 in Paris, France. His father, Auguste Manet, was a high-ranking judge. He married Manet's mother, Eugenie Desirée Fournier, who was the daughter of a diplomat and the goddaughter of the Swedish crown prince. Along with his two younger brothers, Manet grew up in an upper-middle-class materialistic family and was expected to continue the family's grand name and gain a higher-achieving job, preferably something in law. However, Manet had different interests than his parents. His first art class was a drawing class at age 13 at the Rolling School in Paris. Although his parents, specifically his father, differed with Manet's comforts that he explored through art, Manet's uncle on his mother's side, Edmond Fournier, completely supported him. Fournier had encouraged him to engage his artistic talent and prepared numerous trips for him to visit the Louvre. Although at the time, art sounded more appealing to Manet, he also wanted to appease his father. As Manet's father's fear of losing the social respect of their family name became more prominent, Manet agreed to join the Naval Academy. In 1848, Manet boarded a Navy vessel headed for Brazil. His father had high hopes in that Manet would somehow forget about an art career and enjoy the seagoing life. However, when Manet returned in 1849, his family was informed that Manet had failed his entrance naval examination. Over a course of a decade, Manet would fail once more. However, in the midst of this, in 1849, after failing the first time, Manet joined the Merchant Marine to gain experience as a student pilot and voyage to Rio de Janeiro. Upon his return, he came back with a portfolio he had kept of paintings and drawings he had created along his journey. With that portfolio, Manet had evidence of his talents, to which he showed his father. However, that still did not fully convince him. Once Manet failed the last time on his naval examinations, his parents, although still skeptical of his interests, gave in and started supporting his dreams of attending an art school. Once his family was supportive, Manet's art career was started. After not succeeding in the Navy, Manet was encouraged by his uncle Fournier and one of his friends, Antoine Proust, to study art. For many years, Manet would go on the trips his uncle funded to the Louvre and sit for hours replicating the works of famous artists. At around the age of 18, Manet began studying under Thomas Couture, learning the basics of drawing and painting. During the time he spent with Couture, Manet learned that, like his instructor, he too was all for creating his own style of work, not necessarily meeting the French's expectations. Also, during this time, 1853, 1856, he traveled through Italy, Germany, and Holland to admire and learn different art skills from famous painting by artists such as Frans Hals, Diego Velázquez, and Francisco José de Goya. In fact, because he took especially to Spanish artist Diego Velázquez's work, Manet began to paint darker themed paintings in which the public was responded he was mocking the public. Shortly after discovering new techniques and skills, Manet ventured away from Couture's teachings, came up with his own style of art, and opened his own art studio. One of the first known artworks created by Édouard Manet was The Absinthe Drinker. This particular painting was in fact rejected by the Paris Salon because it portrayed an everyday lower-class man who was drinking his life away. The Saloon wanted a grand historical piece of art. However, to Manet, capturing the moment was the grand historical moment for his time. While this is one of his first forms of realism shown in his artwork, he was quite the realistic painter. However, after his career in realism took off, he decided to change it up, adding more impressionist style to his paintings. He did this with loose brushstrokes, painting his subjects as everyday people engaged in everyday tasks, and with focusing on singers, street people, gypsies, and beggars. Although this artwork seemed staged to some, it impressed others. Although he was learning a new artistic element in Impressionism, Manet went through great lengths for his paintings that focused on the art element Realism. Another one of his early paintings included Concert in the Tuileries Gardens, also known as Music in the Tuileries. For this painting, Manet stood outside creating a fashionable mass of city residents. With Manet's artwork, it is sometimes difficult to make everything out, especially in one of the most famous art pieces, the Luncheon on the Grass. Because this artwork had no clear point and it was looked to be absurd to some viewers, the Saloon refused to show it. The model of this painting, as well as many of Manet's other paintings, was young French girl Victorine Millet, his favorite model throughout the 1860s. The same year, more than 4,000 other paintings from other artists were also rejected by the Saloon. However, due to Napoleon III gaining power, Napoleon established the Saloon des Artistes, which took many of those artworks, including Manet's, and exposed them to the people. Because so many people rejected this painting, Manet became depressed. Manet had an eagerness for art and being accepted as the artist he was. However, during this time, when his art was flourishing, Manet fell in love. Manet married a Dutch woman by the name of Suzanne Leenoff. Being Manet's piano tutor when he was younger, Suzanne and Manet had been in a romantic love affair 10 years prior to being wed. Suzanne was infatuated with Manet's work. She even posed in one called The Reading. During this 10-year love affair, Suzanne gave birth to a son out of wedlock named Leon Leenoff in 1852. The young boy posed for some of his father's work, including Boy Carrying a Sword. Leon also posed as the boy with the tray in the background of Manet's The Balcony. Still trying to gain recognition from the Saloon, Manet created Olympia in 1865. This portrait, inspired by Titan's Venus of Urbino, shows a reclining nude woman who stares at her viewers. A critic writes, he and his colleagues subjected the young girl, calling the girl harlot, female gorilla, and vulgar virgin. The Saloon in public claimed that this art was scandalous. However, some deemed it to be bold, saying he was making a new style in leading the transition from realism to impressionism. Within 42 years, Olympia would be installed in La Villa. Shortly after failing with the Saloon, Manet traveled to Spain and created The Spanish Singer, 1865. The following year, he gained support by novelist Emile Zola, who in 1867 wrote a graceful article about Manet. In the article, Manet discusses how all grand artists start off by upsetting the current public viewers. This review impressed the art critic Louise Edmond Duranty, who also began supporting him. Because the review was so well done, Manet created paintings for the press who supported him. Unlike other Impressionist-like groups, Manet was focused on just gaining acceptance into the Saloon. However, once he was again rejected by the Saloon in 1867, he set up his own exhibit. While the exhibit didn't earn many good reviews, it did put Manet in contact with many other future Impressionist artists such as Cézanne, Degas, and Monet. He was influenced by artists such as Monet and Morisot. Their influence is seen in Monet's use of lighter colors. However, unlike those artists, he adds a strict use of black, venturing away from others. Even though Monet's work expressed the Impressionist style, he did not want to join the Impressionist groups. Because for one, he was devoted to the Saloon, and two, he did not want to be identified as purely Impressionist. His only formal student was Eva Gonzalez. Many of Manet's famous works are his depiction of cafe scenes, which were often sketched while out socializing. These works include the corner of the cafe concert, the beer drinkers, and the cafe concert. In corner of a cafe concert, a man smokes while behind him a waitress serves drinks. In the beer drinkers, a woman enjoys her beer in the company of a friend. In a cafe concert shown to the right, a sophisticated gentleman sits at a bar while a waitress stands in the background sipping her drink. Aside from other painters at this time, Manet wanted to illustrate the cultures of both the common and high-class French people. Many of his subjects included reading, writing, drinking, and working. However, unlike his cafe scenes, he also made art depicting the triumphs and tragedies of war. In 1870, Manet served as a soldier during the Franco-German War. During this time, he watched as much of Paris fell, including most of his studio, at the siege of Paris. But luckily for Manet, an art dealer named Paul Durand Rael bought everything he could salvage from the wreckage for 50,000 francs. In 1874, Manet was invited to the very first Impressionist exhibit. However, even though he supported it, due to his loyalty to the saloon, he turned it down. Like many of his paintings, Édouard Manet was a contradiction, meaning he was both common and higher class, conventional yet radical. In 1881, the French government awarded him the Légion d'honneur. 1 year after that, Manet completed one of his final paintings, a bar at the Folies Bergère, and it hung in the saloon that year, 1882. He died 2 years later at the age of 51 by untreated syphilis in Paris on April 30th, 1883. This disease caused him great pain in the years prior to his death, in which his foot was amputated around the time of his death. He is buried in the Cimetière des Passés in the city. After his death, Manet's wife wanted to secure his legacy by selling his paintings at extraordinary prices, achievements by the French government, and making multiple biographies on him. In Manet's lifetime, he created 420 paintings and left behind the legacy of being the father of Impressionism.